Hello, happy Friday. This was a bit of a last minute decision to go live today. I was going to do a sort of pre-recorded video and I thought I quite enjoy doing lives, did one last week. So here we are again. I'm not expecting to have many people showing up live because it was relatively last minute, but welcome if you are watching live or if you are watching the replay, which will be most people watching the replay. So today's topic is protection or connection. What is your voice revealing? And this is a big juicy topic and a big part of my work, really, that the voice is reflecting what's really going on within at the deepest level. That's really the underlying sort of philosophy of my coaching, my teaching, and everything I do. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Before I get going, if you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Also, if you have any comments or questions, feel free to post them below, and you'll hear Luna, my cat, meowing behind me because she always does as soon as I go live with clients, with anything. So I'm sure lots of you experience that with your pets as well. So she might run around in the background in a minute when she gets annoyed that I'm ignoring her. So yes, feel free to post below. And if you like my video, please give it a thumbs up. Please share it with your friends and family. So if you are new to my channel or you've been watching my channel for a while, or you watch any videos from any voice coaches, public speaking coaches, speaker coaches, I mean, who knows, we all use our own terminology for this, then you probably are here for a particular reason because your voice isn't where you would like it. And I'm just going to give you a few things to think about. So do you, for example, experience a weak, quiet voice? Do you feel your voice lacks clarity or intelligibility? So maybe you know that you mumble, or people tell you that you mumble. Does your voice lack expression and melody and animation? Does it sound sort of dull and boring and maybe even a bit monotone? Does your voice feel strained, loud, or forced? And when I say loud, I mean you don't have any control over the volume. It's just loud. You have like one setting. It's either quiet or it's loud. And you don't have any control over modifying that volume. Does your voice tire easily? Does it feel very effortful? And do you run out of breath? Do you find it hard to power your voice with your breath? Very, very common. And finally, is your voice just basically unreliable? You don't feel like you have any control over your voice, particularly when you're nervous, maybe it shakes, maybe you just can't get it out. It just feels really challenging. So those habits are what I would call limiting vocal habits. And you might have one, you might have a few. But that is really, from my perspective, there's something they're protecting you from. Might be unconscious, probably is unconscious. So there's a high sort of protection around those habits. So they're serving you in some way. You know, they're keeping you safe in some way. But your true voice, your true authentic voice, your natural voice, what's really possible for you, is actually a voice that is free, that's open, that's powerful, that's expressive. And so that's what I want to talk about today, more about this protective voice versus this authentic voice. Because as I say, that is really underpinning everything that I do. Also, you can't make this stuff up. She's so naughty. Also, very distracting. I have got a very special offer available till this coming Monday, the 30th of September, 2024, only, just because I don't know when people are going to be watching this video. So if you're interested in experiencing my coaching, my transformational coaching, I have a very special 1 month Speak with Impact intro package available. I'll talk more about it at the end, but I will put the links. Oh, the link, actually, there's just one link. The link below if you're interested in booking, but you do need to purchase it before this coming Monday. But I'll talk about that at the end. I just want to put that out there now. So if you're interested, make sure you stick around to the end. Okay, so I want to base this conversation today on the work of Patsy Rodenberg, who, if you know anything about the voice, she's an eminent voice coach. And she wrote this book called Presence, which is really, really fascinating and actually really sort of works perfectly with what I talk about. So I'm going to be using her terminology today when I talk about the protective voice versus the authentic voice. And she talks about the 3 circles of energy. And so the first and the third circle are really more about protection. So I'm going to talk a little bit now about the first and the third circle so you can sort of see where you might be, because most of us fall on one side or the other, including myself. You know, it takes a lot of self-analysis and introspection and inner shadow work to really move through these, to really become free. So there's nothing wrong with you for actually falling on one side of the fence or the other. Now, of course, you're not going to be 100% one or the other, but just to know, like, what side of the fence am I sort of more favoring? Okay, so let's talk first of all now about the first circle. And again, read more about it in her book if this interests you, because it's really fascinating and really supports all the work that I do. So the first circle of energy then, as Patsy talks about, is really this idea of this inward facing kind of energy. It's very introspective. It's very withdrawn. You really feed off other people's energy. So you draw energy inwards, and almost at sort of an extreme level, you feel very powerless, you feel ignored, you feel left out. You might notice you get talked over, people might interrupt you, very common with a lot of the clients that I end up working with. And you don't really want to draw any attention to yourself, whether in terms of how you communicate, maybe how you dress, but you really just want to sort of hide behind the, I was going to say hide behind the curtain. Hide behind the curtain. So you really kind of just want to disappear. And of course, this idea of being sort of introspective and reflective can be very helpful. I mean, we do need some of that, because actually we do have to go within to create the change without. So there is an element of introspection that we need. We need to actually be okay with being in silence, listening to what's going on within, feeling what's going on within. So it can be very, very useful. But the challenge with this is often it is really sort of almost trying to get your energy from other people. So it's like, I show up empty and I need to fill my cup from you. So I need you to make me feel better. I need you to make me feel more alive and more sociable, etc. And I'm sure we can all sort of resonate with this or know people that are like this. And again, I'm talking here at a very extreme level. So what happens then is it's very draining for you, because you're constantly trying to kind of almost like Dracula, like trying to sort of get energy from other people, but it's also draining for the people around you, because we feel it. We feel when people are just sort of sucking the life out of us. They don't really have much energy to give. They're just really wanting to take. It's very much a taking energy. Now, how does this impact the voice? And again, Patsy talks a little bit about this in, of course, she's a voice coach, so she will. So I'm going to talk as well a bit more about this from my perspective too. So really, when we are trying to disappear and hide, and we don't really have a lot of our own energy to bring to the table, the voice then is kind of powerless and weak. We might find that we mumble. There's not a lot of clarity in our voice. We might find that we swallow our sound, really, really common. People kind of pull their voice back into their throat. They often don't know that they're doing it as well. So the voice kind of sits back here, and they've got no energy in their voice. It's just like the energy's been sort of sucked out of their body. Also, often these people will find that they run out of breath as well, again, because there's nothing to power the voice. So, that there's just no energy. I need to kind of pull the energy from other people. And it really, really impacts the voice. So the voice is very, very shut down. It's very much about hiding and disappearing. So As I mentioned at the start, this is a very sort of protective voice use. And again, there's nothing, if this is you, that's okay. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. This is just your defense mechanism. This is your ego's way of protecting you. So often for people that really connect with this, there is really this feeling of trying to avoid being criticized, trying to avoid being shamed, ridiculed. It's really they've learned to hide because it's not safe for me to express myself. And at the extreme end of this, it could be sort of physical, sexual, emotional abuse or being bullied. And again, I hope that if that is you, that you go and seek the psychotherapy support that you need, because my kind of coaching is not psychotherapy, although I have got the Jungian sort of psychology background, but it's very much in a coaching capacity. So if that is you in that very extreme end, please go and get support for that. So often in those cases, people that have been through those sorts of experiences learn that it's not safe for me to express myself. So the safest thing for me to do is just shut my voice down. And really then no one can hear me. And I just try and keep myself as small and quiet as possible. But that's what we might call a big trauma, big T trauma. But there's also for many of us like small traumas, small T traumas, which we've all experienced. Every human being has been through something. My cat's getting more and more annoyed because I'm ignoring her. So this could be something like I experienced growing up. You know, you just get teased a lot, you get shamed a lot, but it's done sort of through love. You know, it's like, well, we love you, but there's a lot of kind of teasing and sarcasm and criticism, but it's sort of done with love, quote unquote. And so that might be you. You're in a family, there's a lot of that kind of, you know, teasing. But it doesn't feel nice when you're on the receiving end of that all the time. And if you say something, you kind of get judged or criticized, or people, you know, your family or friends laugh at you. So again, if that has been very much part of your upbringing, you probably will learn to shut your voice down. And who could blame you? You know, you're just learning to survive. If I don't express myself, then I can sort of avoid some of this criticism. You might also have had a very dominant sort of caregiver, father figure, mother figure in your life. And again, it was just easier and safer for you to stay quiet. So it doesn't have to be like a really extreme sort of sexual abuse or emotional abuse, physical abuse. It could just be what we all experience. Every single human being has those types of experiences in their upbringing, because we're all brought up by imperfect parents or caregivers. We're all human. We're all just trying to do the best that we can. So does that resonate with you? Because that would be, I would say for myself, probably more on that end of this spectrum that I'm going to talk about. That was certainly my experience growing up. You know, better to sort of stay quiet than express myself, because I just didn't want to be ridiculed in front of family and friends and things like that. So that's the first one. So that is the first circle of energy. It's very pulled back, it's very withdrawn, and you really get your energy from other people. You don't really bring much to the table from that perspective. You're very much reliant on other people to bring the energy to the party, the proverbial party. Okay, so that's the first circle. Now, then Patsy talks about the third circle. So these are the two sides of the same coin. These are both protective mechanisms, but they're two sides of the same coin. But it's still very much a defense. It's still very much about protection. So the third circle then is the other side of the coin, which is your energy is very outward. You are really seeking attention from anyone that will give you attention. So you're not really that fussed. You're not really that specific. It doesn't necessarily have to be from a specific person. It's just someone give me attention. Someone listen to me. Someone notice me. And so your interactions then with people are fairly superficial. There's not a lot of connection. And I've kind of used this analogy before because I do know people in my life like this. Interestingly, I'm not going to mention any names, but it's almost like when you speak, it's like you're broadcasting versus connecting. So it's like you're almost talking at people. You're not even interested whether they're engaging or connecting. It's just like, I'm just telling you about my life. So you might be this person, or you might know people like this. So the energy is very much pushed out onto everyone else. There's not a lot of intimacy. There's no vulnerability. It's very superficial. People don't really feel you. So it's very sort of disconnected. And you can maybe come across a little bit arrogant, self-absorbed, or insensitive. Now, again, this isn't who you really are, and I'm going to the extreme here when I talk about this. But again, are you more on that side than the person that withdraws? So, of course, like the first circle, the third circle can be very, very helpful. In social situations, in social events, in networking, in motivating a team, someone that lives in this sort of third circle of energy is really good at getting the crowd going, really good at getting people, more awake and alive. Think about a sort of MC or someone hosting an event. They're really, really good at just getting the crowd going. They don't need to be, connecting particularly vulnerably, or there doesn't need to be a lot of intimacy or vulnerability. I'm just sort of more broadly talking at people. I'm just broadcasting at you. So there are, of course, nothing is good or bad. It's very much about, just sort of noticing when we live on one side of the fence or the other, because the purpose of all of my coaching and all of my work, it's about an integration. So we have a choice. So we can choose to be more extrovert and show up and get the crowd going if that's what's required, or we can choose to be more vulnerable and intimate if that's what's required. So everything in my work is about a choice. It's not about I can only be this person or I can only be that person. So how does this impact your voice then? Well, won't be much of a surprise. There'll probably be a lot of volume to your voice. You'll probably be quite loud. There might be even a sort of slightly aggressive or domineering tone to your voice. And again, as I said before, there's nothing wrong with having a loud voice if it's a choice. But is the loud only because that's the only way I can speak? I say this to my singing clients all the time. There's nothing wrong with singing breathy as long as it's a choice. As long as I'm not singing breathy because that's the only way I can sing. So again, when we're speaking, it's like, can we vary our volume for the circumstances, or is it loud or quiet and that's it? So that would be a big one. Also, noisy breathing, because you're probably over breathing. There's probably a lot of, a lot of breath coming in. You're probably over breathing in a way. There's also going to be a lot of effort in the voice, just generally, and that could come across a little bit fake. So it might sound a little bit like you're being overly expressive, overly confident. But as I say, people don't really buy it. People don't really feel it because it's not really coming from an authentic place. It's like you're playing a role, you're playing a part. This is the persona, which I talk about a lot. And also, because of a lot of these things, because there's a lot of force, a lot of volume, a lot of sort of almost like overly breathing, you might find that your voice fatigues very easily. Really, really common as well. So as with the first circle of energy, the third circle of energy is also a protection. It's not coming from an authentic place. It's not coming from a place of connection. People can't connect with you because you're pushing your voice onto people. So there isn't really, it's very much a pushing energy out onto people. And really what this comes down to is you on some level not feeling valued, important. There's a kind of self-esteem issue going on, which there is for either side of the fence, let's be honest. But here it's like, I don't feel important, I don't feel valued, I don't feel noticed, so I'm going to make you listen to me. I'm going to make you notice me. And so maybe if this is you, perhaps you grew up alone, or perhaps there was a lot of chaos in your upbringing. Maybe your father left or your mother left, and then you were brought up by one parent, but they were never really around, so you didn't get a lot of attention. Maybe you were like a latchkey kid. Perhaps you were part of a big family, of attention. So you almost had to sort of fight to be heard, to be noticed, to be seen, to be validated. And so you sort of bring this kind of energy of fighting for attention into your adult life, into how you communicate, because you really don't want to be ignored. But really underneath that, there's actually a deeper fear of connection. There's a deeper fear of intimacy and vulnerability, because, as I say, growing up, you probably didn't get that. And so you learned that it's not safe. And so you keep people at arm's length. So this is the perfect way of keeping people at arm's length, because, as I said before, we feel it in people. We do feel when someone is sort of talking at us, it's quite superficial. They're not really listening to us. They're not really connecting to us. We feel it. So that's the first and the third circle. And you'll probably find, as I said at the start, you'll favor one side more than the other. And you'll start to notice sort of patterns. Again, you're not 100% one side or the other, but we tend to sort of fall on one side, and your voice will tell you a lot as well. So as I've gone through those sort of vocal habits that I would say limit your voice, it will tell you a lot about what sort of side of the fence that you're on. Now, most of my clients probably fall more in the first circle, probably because I fall more in the first circle. And so like attracts like, we tend to sort of resonate with people that are in that space. So yes, I have worked with people in the third circle, but I generally work with more people in the first circle. So the second circle, again, this is from Patsy Rodenberg's book, Presence. It just fits, it dovetails so perfectly into what I do. So that's why I wanted to talk about it. This is where your true, authentic voice lives. This is where the connection lives. So it's not about protection anymore. This is about real, authentic connection with other people. And this is really now an energy of giving and receiving. I'm not just forcing and giving my voice, and I'm not just taking or giving and taking. It's very much a give and take, or giving and receiving energy. So it's very responsive. You're very present with people. You're very open. You're very connected to yourself and connected to other people. So you can see how you have aspects of both. So there's an element of you're introspective, you're reflective, but there's also an element of being very open and very comfortable expressing yourself. So you communicate very freely, very openly, very generously, and very courageously. You're not afraid to have challenging conversations. You're not afraid to be vulnerable and tell someone you love them, but you're also not afraid to tell someone that they're really annoying you, and we need to sort this out. So you're very open, but it comes from a place of love when you have this conversation versus protection and defense. You sort of really are able to touch the hearts of other people because you're connected to your own heart and soul when you speak. And so they feel heard because you're connected to yourself, and you have more vulnerable, connected conversations. And also because you're not pulling from people, you're not sort of trying to get energy off people like the first circle, but you're also not pushing your energy onto other people like the third circle. And you're really sort of noticed, you're in your power, and you're remembered when you speak. People remember you, because they feel special around you. They feel heard. They feel important around you. Now, this can challenge people, particularly people that are very identified with their ego and in that protective, defensive place. So being in the second circle can really challenge people. Or trigger people, as I like to use the terminology. So it could be that if you're very good in the second circle at being very vulnerable and asking people, and having really vulnerable conversations with people, if someone is not comfortable going there, because they haven't done their own inner work, that is going to trigger them. They're going to feel uncomfortable when you're very comfortable talking about stuff. And just as an example in my own life, some of you may know, but maybe a lot of you don't. So 10 years ago, my mum passed away, and then shortly after my dad passed away. This was all very, very unexpected and obviously life-changing. And that was actually really the start of my journey into discovering Carl Jung's work. However, that's another story. But my point being that because I've been on this whole journey myself of grief like I'd never experienced before. I mean, before that, I'd lost pets, my grandparents, but I wasn't particularly close to my grandparents. This was the first time I've really experienced grief. So I'd been on this massive journey myself of coming to terms with the grief and confronting the grief and being okay with the sadness and all of that. That was where a lot of my music that I've written in recent years has been inspired from. But I noticed that so many of us in our world, we just don't want to think about death. We're really uncomfortable with talking about people dying, death, even though we're all going to die. And it's crazy in a way, but I was the same. And so I'm very comfortable talking about it. So for some people, that can be quite triggering when they're really not okay talking about it. And for other people who are more open and ready to go there, it's almost like when they talk to me, it's a very safe space to talk about it with, because I've been there. I've been there with two of the most significant people in my life, and I've done a lot of my own work around this space. So I'm very comfortable having very vulnerable, open conversations about death, dying, grief, because I was there when both of my parents died as well. So it was, the double whammy. Not only they died, but I saw them die. So I'm very comfortable talking about that, but I know it triggers people who haven't come to terms with their own mortality, and they can't go there. They just can't feel it. They can't allow themselves to go there, even though they have to go there at some point. So just to illustrate the point, when we're in the second circle, it can really challenge people when we're okay with being really vulnerable and really open and other people aren't ready. The other side of the coin as well is that it can challenge people when they're used to you not speaking up. They're used to you just being a doormat. And now you're starting to challenge them. You're okay with conflict. That challenges people. If they're used to you just agreeing and just saying whatever needs to be said to sweep the issue under the carpet, and now you're actually like, no, I want to have a conversation about this. This isn't okay. I need to talk to you about this. So it will challenge people when you're really in your power and you're speaking from this more authentic place, and it's really about connecting from a place of love versus fear, which is the other two types. It does challenge people who aren't ready to go there, who haven't done any of their own work or much of their own work, and they're living predominantly from their ego. So coming back to what I said at the start as well, this second voice is very open, it's free, it's powerful, it's expressive. It's not afraid to be loud, it's not afraid to be quiet, it's not afraid to speak, it's not afraid to be silent. It's, you're just really connected to yourself and in your power. And as a result, you're able to be present and really engage with other people on a much deeper level so they feel heard. So what side of the fence do you feel you fall onto? Is it the first circle or the third circle? And again, it doesn't mean that you're a bad person. This is just your ego's way of keeping you safe. And as I talked about, look at some of the reasons why your ego might have adopted the first circle or the third circle as well as a defense mechanism. It's really human. It's really normal. So don't make this mean that you're bad or you're wrong. That's not what I'm saying. This is really just about bringing awareness so that you can start to create change and you can have more conscious control over how you communicate and how you use your voice. Because unless you've had some sort of major pathology on your voice, my belief is every voice has access to power, openness, freedom, clarity, and expression, regardless of accent, regardless of mother tongue. It's available to you. And if you're struggling with It's because it's on some level not safe. On some level, there is something bad that's going to happen if you go there, emotionally speaking. And so you sort of don't let yourself go there. You've got one foot on the brake, one foot on the accelerator, which is why I say all the time, voice exercises alone will only take you so far. So, as I mentioned at the start, I do have a very special offer available till this coming Monday, 30th of September 2024, because I don't know what year you're going to be listening to this in. And this is a intro 1 month Speak with Impact private voice coaching package. Now, normally when I work with clients, it's a minimum 3-month commitment. Because I go so much deeper, because this is so much more than voice exercises, as you can probably tell from what I've talked about today, I usually sort of work with people over a longer period of time because I find that people need time just to allow themselves to open up. You know, there's a lot of resistance from the ego when you start to want to create change and leave your comfort zone. So it's not going to give up without a fight. So often it can take a few months for people to really open themselves up to this and really allow their voice out. However, there is, of course, a lot of value if you are new to this, if you just want to sort of find your feet, see where you are, you haven't done anything like this before, and you're not quite ready to throw yourself into it completely. This could be a really, really powerful intro session for you, just to get you to start to see what's really possible with your voice, how you're consciously and unconsciously holding your voice back. And you can then start to create some change, and you can start to kind of show up differently in your day-to-day life, in your business, in your career, at home, with family, friends. You know, we take our voice everywhere we go. So this is a 4-week program. You get 3 private voice sessions with me taken over Zoom, so you can be anywhere in the world. And also, I will send you like a summary post each session, so you know what to focus on. I'll summarize kind of the session, what we did, give you some tools and things to do before we meet again. You'll also get a recording of the session, so you can go back and listen to it as many times as you need. And it's just going to be a really, really powerful session. You're going to come away feeling far more empowered, far more confident, and just a greater awareness of your voice and what's really going on. So it's a $9.97 investment. I'll put the link below, and this is just a payment link, so make the payment, and then I will get in contact with you to arrange your sessions. However, if you have questions, you want to ask me questions first, either leave a comment below, or you can just go straight to my website, anuska-taylor.com, and just send me a message through my website. Very, very happy to answer any of your questions. I want you to feel very comfortable before you make the purchase. So ask me questions. I would love to support you, but this is only available. Don't hesitate, get onto it. You will not regret it, I promise you. All the clients I work with, like the hundreds of clients I worked with over the years, most people wish they'd started sooner. They procrastinate for a long time. They try and figure it out on their own. They try and find cheaper options. Often people try and do it on the cheap. But if you really want transformation, you know, you've got to put some skin in the game. And you want to be around that energy of abundance as well, versus someone that isn't charging very much because they haven't done their own inner work. So it's really about you stepping into the more abundant, powerful version of yourself, which is really also about you investing in you, knowing that there's an infinite supply of resources around you if you kind of open your mind to it. So thank you so much. I hope you have enjoyed this session. Leave a comment, ask a question, give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. And who knows, I might be back live next week. If not, I will definitely be back on YouTube next week in some shape or form. But I will see you again. Have a great weekend.